everyone, today I'm going to show you how I make this flower. I use my template number 11 for this flower, and this is a nice flower that I use to, usually to fill in for backdrops, and so I like to keep them nice and small and usually bright so it gives pop of color, but it's not huge in terms of the overall backdrop. So this is one that I like to make a lot to include into backdrops. So I'll go ahead and show you. I'll move this to the side. And so what you'll need is, what I use anyway, is a half of the 12 by 12 piece of paper, and I've cut lines across to make the center. I have a 3-inch square, a 3-inch circle and a 4-inch circle for the base and to cover the top, and 2 sets of petals, one larger and one smaller, a pair of scissors and a bone folder, as well as a hot glue gun and glue sticks. So what I like to do first, I'll move this to the side, is prep my petals. And so these petals are a little bit smaller than the usual flowers that I make. And so I just want a slight curl to the outer edge of the petal. So very slight. And this curve gives it, more of a realistic petal look. You can see. I like these flowers too because they are very quick to make, and so I can fill in a backdrop quite easily. So I usually make different sizes, some larger, some smaller. Alright, and then I'd like to cut a slit down all the petals. So this one about 1.5 inches, and for the larger petals just slightly longer of a cut. And then I'd like to glue the 2 pieces of the petal together. So I actually glued that upside down. So what I'm doing is I'm just curling it to fit the way that I want the petal to look. So you can easily do that if you accidentally do as well, but I actually need to flip these because I want the curl underneath. So I want to glue the 2 pieces together so that it becomes more upright and the curls are down rather than up if I had done this. So I don't want the curls of the petals to go up. You can do that if you like the look, but for this particular flower, I wanted to turn them around, and I skipped that step. So to make it faster, I usually add glue to several pieces at a time. That way, by the time I get back to the first one, the glue has cooled down a little bit and less likely to burn my fingers. Okay, so this is the smaller petals, and I want to do the same for the larger petals. Okay, so now I've got my petals prepped. I want to glue them to the base. So here I'm using a circle base. In my other videos I've been using a hexagonal base, and that still works here if you want, except that with a hexagonal base, unless you use a smaller hexagon, they're arranged further apart, and I want the petals to sort of overlap each other. So what I want to do is add a little bit of glue to the bottom and then glue the first petal. And then I want to glue the second petal just next to it. Slightly overlapping. Now I just use a circle, but I don't use the entire circle. I just use it as a guide. Sometimes I cut out circles that are way too big for the flower that I'm going for. You see that it's completely off, but I will just trim that down later. I actually probably could have used this one, but I like to start with a bigger circle. You could also glue them together without having that circle base first, and you could just glue the sides together. I find that I'm horrible at that. It's completely off, and so I avoid it. Okay, so you can see I didn't use the entire circle. I can trim this down later. I usually add something to cover the back of the flower anyway, so that's why it doesn't particularly bother me. Okay, and we'll add the second layer of petals here. Not sure why this one. Oh, I'm just seeing things. So the second layer, you just glue it similarly. Probably could have glued the petals a little bit further apart, but I want it to have a smaller look, so I glued them fairly close together. So lastly, I want to glue this circle into the middle of the flower to cover up where I glued. Okay, and I want to make my center next. So it's actually very easy, just with a cut fringe. Generally the most basic type of flower center. You just need to glue both sides together. Without creasing. If you had done it with a pair of scissors, if you had folded a piece of paper in half and cut it with a piece of paper. I mean, cut it with a pair of scissors. You would have that crease because you folded the piece of paper in half. Just flip it over the other side so that it sort of gets rid of the little crease in the middle from folding it in half. But I wanted the loops, so I did not crease it down. And I like to just sort of press it so that the glue that's between the pieces of paper gets a little loose, so it's easier for me to roll. But you just simply roll the flower center together. Adding glue along the way. You can fluff it up just a little. And just add glue to the very bottom. I like to fluff it up so that it covers the center. Although I know I put a circle in there to cover that up, I just like to do that so it fills the flower too. Alright, so this is the one I made where the petals are, so I added one layer, and then the second layer, the petals are in between the first layer of petals, the larger one. You can similarly do it where you don't put the petal in between. I hope I'm making sense. So the first layer I laid 6 petals, and the second one I sort of shifted it so that the petals fall between the middle of the larger ones. Here I did it where the petals fall in line completely with the larger ones, so it gives it a slightly different look. It's not too different, but I do like this. I tend to prefer this one. There are 2 different ways to do it. It's just a subtle difference, but so the only thing that I would probably do differently for larger flowers is to curl it a little bit more. With smaller petals, you really don't have a lot of room when the petals are next to each other. So with larger ones, I think I would curl them a little bit more. I think I'll just try to make this flower again with larger petals in the future, and I'll show you how I do that. But this is template 11. Thank you so much for watching.